No, you don't have listen. You listen to me. You have a gift. You have power. And with great power, there must also come great responsibility.
Oh, she said it. She did.
This is the Blood and Black Rum Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum Podcast. Ryan from coldsploitation.com, and I'm joined with my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. We are back. We've been doing week to week here. We've been, just going to town, covering movies that we've been wanting to do for quite some time. And we're back with another one. We're going to do another movie that we like, kind of like Scream from last week, where we've been itching to do it for some time. Haven't had a chance to because we didn't get to the movie theaters. But now that it's out on demand, we're able to do it. And we've done the whole series too of this film series. So it was one that we definitely wanted to get to. If you remember, we did quite a few Marvel movies. We did a lot of the DC movies too. But at a certain point, like during COVID, we kind of fell off with that. There were just so many movies coming out, and we didn't have a chance to do all of them. And so we missed a few in the Marvel series. We missed Black Widow. We missed the Shang-Chi.
I was gonna say we've done everything up until from Phase 3 except Guardians 2.
Yeah,
because I still haven't seen a Guardians film.
Yeah, so we kind of fell off with that, but we want to get back to it at least for this movie because
money
for money. Yeah, right.
Disney dollars.
Yeah. We're not even counting all the movies or the TV shows that are on Disney Plus, which we don't plan on covering because that's just too much to do. It's almost too much for me to keep up with just watching those shows.
Well, that's why I'm like I've said before, with Star Wars. I know so many people are excited about all the stuff with Star Wars, which I would be, but at the same time, it's like, you know what? This is too overwhelming. 5 shows to keep up with. No, sorry.
Well,
I'll pass.
The Mandalorian was good. The new one with the Boba Fett series was okay. Basically became Mandalorian season 2.5. And then the Obi-Wan Kenobi show is coming soon in May. So we'll see how that goes. And that's funny, too, because I am concerned that I'm going to watch the Obi-Wan show and not know what the fuck is going on. Because I do not have... It's funny because I watch the Star Wars shows, but I do not have, the background with the movies.
I think the only movies you've seen is Solo and Rogue One.
No, and I've seen... I really have seen the original trilogy just a really long time ago. And I did watch A New Hope pretty recently, but it's been a long time since I've seen the other two, particularly Return of the Jedi. It's been a really long time since I've seen it. I really only saw it once or twice when I was a lot younger. So I am interested in watching Obi-Wan, but I am concerned that I will not know what the hell is going on with it.
Listen,
there's too much lore.
Any Star Wars fan worth their salt will tell you Empire's the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you say otherwise, you're wrong.
But we're talking about a different franchise today. We're talking about the Spider-Man franchise.
That's right, Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Yeah. We're talking about Spider-Man No Way Home, the third film in the trilogy of Peter Parker trying to find a home, and you know what? He has a home.
I was gonna to call it the Happy Hogan trilogy, because
John
Favreau is the glue.
Happy Hogan gets out of an abusive relationship with Tony Stark because he's dead. Happy Hogan finds Peter Parker and helps him out. Happy Hogan finds love with Marissa Tomei. And in No Way Home, Happy falls out of love and experiences another tragic loss. It's the Happy trilogy.
It's his character arc, to be honest.
Yeah, right, exactly. This is setting him up to be a big supervillain. All of a sudden, Happy.
No, I would
mind. The world is terrible. It's evil.
That's the Marvel show I want. I don't want WandaVision. I want the Happy Hogan show where it's just like, what adventures will Harold Hogan go on today?
No. It's the Home trilogy, where Peter Parker tries to find a home when he doesn't realize he already has one. Because Marissa
Home
Tomei,
is right.
Yeah, home is where Marissa Tomei is.
Well, I was going to go with, from Joe Dirt, Home Away Omega. You like to see homos naked? No. Home Away Omega.
So, No Way Home, well, I should say, we've done the other two. We did Homecoming, we did Far From Home. And I think our enjoyment of those movies kind of increased as the series went on, right? Like, because I really enjoyed Homecoming, but I don't think it's the best Spider-Man movie in the series. Far From Home came along, and I think we enjoyed that quite a bit. And that was like in a time where we sort of got into this rut of superhero movies where lots of superhero movies were coming out at the same time, and we were kind of like, like there's another one we've got to go see, and that was including the DC movies that were coming out.
Wow, I had to look up. I totally forgot who even the fucking villain was in Homecoming.
You don't remember?
I don't. I vaguely remember Michael Keaton.
Yeah, of course. Michael Keaton. Reprising Jack Frost.
Oh, I was going to say the founder of McDonald's.
Yeah. No, but I my enjoyment of the movie, of the series, went up each iteration. And then we get to No Way Home, which is kind of the end of the line. What's that?
Speaking of, you know what? Now that I think about it, they never exposited upon at the ending of Homecoming. I can't remember who they ran into the prison at the end that was locked away when Vulture was getting locked up. Mm-hmm. When Keaton was getting locked up.
Oh yeah, but it was the one guy from
Black Panther. Never mind. Was it?
I think he does show up again. Yeah, in Black. Well, it's not. I don't know. I can't remember now. But it was the guy from Better Call Saul. Right?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Nacho,
We just redlined there for a second.
Oh, jeez, it's been 5.
You were so excited about that, but yeah, I don't really remember.
Well, it's been 5. It's been 5 goddamn years.
I don't really
okay?
remember. Yeah, I don't remember if a thing came of that or not.
I don't think it ever ended.
It's a good question. I don't remember. But going into No Way Home, I was definitely excited, and now that we're watching it a long time after it's released, we have the privilege of knowing that other people thought this was a really, really good movie, and going into it, I was definitely excited. But I think I really, really, really ended up enjoying No Way Home a lot, and I think it may end up becoming my favorite Spider-Man movie of this trilogy. Obviously, nothing can top the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans because they're just so amazing, serious, funny. Tobey Maguire plays a great emo Spider-Man. But
how do you don't even remember that? You even said I don't even remember what happened in Spider-Man 3.
I vaguely remember that he went through a phase of My Chemical Romance. But yeah. But I really, really enjoyed No Way Home. I'll start off by saying that before we talk about the movie more in depth. I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's a really fun movie. And we're going to talk about the ways that I think it's fun. But I'll let you go ahead and talk about what led up to you watching it, your expectations, and your ultimate takeaways before we talk details about the movie.
This is a horrid film. I do not recommend it. It pisses all over the legacy of so many.
Wow.
Marvel needs to wrap up shop. That's my review.
That's it. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I guess we're done then.
Yeah.
That was an easy, quick episode. Thanks for listening. 10 minutes long.
Well, okay. Well, all right, fine. You want an honest one then? My expectations going into this, I knew vaguely what the premise was. I knew who would be there. But spoilers overall though stayed away from. But I mean, I had pretty high expectations for it to be like not like a great film, but a solid, enjoyable film because the Spider-Man, films so far in the Marvel Universe have been incredibly solid and delivered. So, they can make Jake Gyllenhaal entertaining in 2019. They can probably make this entertaining too.
Why do you say that? They could make Jake Gyllenhaal entertaining.
Because Jake Gyllenhaal is a terribly not great actor.
No, I don't know. I think he's a pretty good actor in some scenarios. I think that that some of his more recent output has been questionable as from a
so
quality
the day
standpoint. But.
So the day after tomorrow wasn't questionable out.
No, like I said, I think that
because that's not recent. That's not recent.
Yeah, I guess it's fairly recent. I would consider it recent in the scheme of things, but
it's like 2008.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that he does have some good and bad qualities. I don't think he was terrible in Spider-Man. Far From Home. Far From Home.
He's like he's a poor man's Tobey Maguire. With that like doughy-eyed like look of like, oh, what's going on? Stuff's happening.
Yeah.
But Tobey Maguire was in Pleasantville, so he'll forever and always be.
Yeah, so you can forgive on that one.
Well, I mean, one, Tobey Maguire's great, and two, Pleasantville's a fantastically underrated film.
Yeah.
So that one that I love. So, but no, I did expect this to be a fun romp of a film, and it did deliver. So
good.
All joking aside.
All right, so we will take a break before we get into the details about the movie. And let's talk about the beer that we have on the show today, because we do have a new beer today. Went out and got it myself. We have the Nelson Moteuka Bomb from Sloop Brewing. And
are you sure you're pronouncing that hop right?
Moteuka. That's my guess. I don't really see another way to pronounce it. Moteuka. But if there is, someone can correct me on that. I just don't see another way to pronounce it. But, so, I don't know. Have we had Sloop on here before?
Yes, we have.
I get a lot of Sloop, but I can't remember if we had it or not.
Yeah, every time you usually get one, we do it on
All right. Fair enough.
We do it.
I guess I just don't remember. We do so many. But, obviously, I'm a big fan of Sloop. Have it quite a bit. Try to grab all of their new stuff when it comes out. They make a lot of IPAs, and
mainly known for the
right.
juice bomb. I was saying, mainly known for the juice bomb.
That's right. We have had them on there because I remember talking about this before. They make a lot of IPAs, and what it generally boils down to is like, yep, that's a Sloop. Tastes like a Sloop. Feels like a Sloop. It's a Sloop. And what that means is they make a lot of similar tasting beers, and all of those beers are good. With the granted that they all taste very similar. And if you like, and that's the case with all IPAs, really, right? So like, especially when you get into like the NEIPAs and things like that, when you're just shuffling around different types of like. Here's what I think happens at these breweries. They have a deck of cards and they write hops on them. Shuffle that deck of cards up, deal out 2 or 3, and say, that's the next one we're making, this combo. And that's what they do. And so that's kind of like why everything kind of tastes somewhat samey, because you're mixing and matching hops, and then sometimes, you know, with different types of hops, the characteristics are limited in scope. Or if you're not a super taster, and I'm not, and I know you've said you're not, it is sometimes hard to distinguish the taste, and not only that, it's hard to put into words the different taste.
Look, I just used Untapped. I don't pretend to be one of these fucking vintners on there, like,
Right,
you know.
right. And I agree as well. I'm not. What I can say, though, is that the Nelson plus Moteuka Bomb does have a distinctive taste to it. It is not the samey NEIPA with, like, citrus burst flavors, with, like, a particular style of grapefruity nature to it, because a lot of the NEIPAs that are being released, when they have, like, the citra hops and stuff, they kind of all tend towards, like, more of a grapefruit flavor. And I don't get that from Nelson and Moteuka. It's definitely a different sort of flavor that's more on the scope of, like, kiwi, I don't know, like, I'm thinking kiwi and, like, nectarine. Just took another sip to get... But what I can say is, like, there is a definite difference in the hop profile here that I think works pretty well. It does have a higher bitterness than I think some of the other citra-based hop IPAs have. That I think... I'm not sure either which one it's coming from. Is it from Nelson or Moteuka? I don't have a good enough taste bud to know which is which here. I have had...
I don't think... I mean, at least we've had a couple of beers with Nelson hops.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any with Moteuka. Could be wrong.
I've had the Moteuka Bomb. So Sloop also makes one that's an individual Moteuka Bomb, and it's just Moteuka. But I cannot really recall what that particular one tasted like. But but what I'm saying is I like this Nelson and Moteuka. I think it's really good. I think it's a little bit different from other Sloop NEIPAs that they've released. So if you're looking for something like that, this is like one of those to check out. At the same time, though, I would say that I don't think that the Nelson and Moteuka is my favorite blend of hop, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I think one of the reasons why I like this, I do really like this one a lot. And again, I think it would be to kind of restate what we said. We said, like, they're not... Sloop makes beers that are sloopy, and they're good. But I think kind of got to strike that. They're not good. They're always very good. They're not... I've never had a below, an average beer from Sloop. They're always, very good to, great, depending on what they're trying. And I do appreciate this mashup, because especially with NEIPAs, and this is a NEIPA, you tend to, as you said, with, like, the citra hops, you tend to get, like, a very standardized, like, this is grapefruity, orangey, tangerine, like, very, standard citrus taste. Here, it's not really, there's no real citrusiness to it at all. It's I would, kiwi would probably be, like, as you said, like, that's actually, I'm glad you said it, because I would have been, like, sitting around for forever kind of trying to think of, like, what fruit am I getting here?
Well, it is on the can, too.
Well, I didn't read it, because readings for...
No, I mean, like, there's a picture of a kiwi.
I don't look at them, I just crack them open.
You're right.
But I mean, it's good that you said that, because, I mean, definitely, that's what I get. One of the hops, again, I don't know if it's the Moteuka, the Nelson, or both. You definitely do get a more hoppy bitterness to it, which is, kind of surprising, because it's only 6%. But it's not just hoppy and, like, piney. It's dank. Like, you're drinking a fiddlehead. And I think that pairing with, like, the kiwi and the NEIPA style, that's great. And it makes it, like, different enough to, like, for me to be like, this is something, like, I like. Because that's, again, Sloop does a hell of a lot of NEIPAs. They're always very good to great. But you get, like, stuck in a rut because, like, as you said, they're, like, picking, like, one little thing to change in the process to kind of change it. So it's still great. but it's not like that, different. Here, I think you got a different enough beer that makes it stand out as a NEIPA, because I don't really know any NEIPAs off the top of my head. Excuse me.
Oh, excuse you.
Excuse me. I don't really know any NEIPAs off the top of my head that, really go for a more dank, basement-y, like, skunkiness to it. Mm-hmm. Like, and not skunkiness as in, like, oh, the beer's skunked, but, like, dope. So, I mean, that like I said, I like it a lot. I gave it a 4 on Untapped. It's very easily drinkable, refreshing. It's delightful. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Check it out, Sloop Brewing, Nelson.
Oh yeah, there is a kiwi. Yeah, there is a kiwi.
It's kiwi right on there.
Yeah.
It's supposed to cue you in. It's like, hey, there might be a kiwi flavor.
Would you describe that like as dank though? Because you said like hoppy. Like for me, it's like dank.
It is slightly dank, yeah. I think that Fiddlehead has like probably the dankest IPA that I've had. I don't know what hop they use in that, but it is such a dank taste to it. This doesn't come close to that, but I do get somewhat dank flavor to it.
So wait, so you're saying that it's even more dank than the Hemperor?
The Hemperor is really dank too. Yeah, and it's actually been a while since I've had the Hemperor, but that one is.
I don't think Voodoo Ranger even makes that anymore.
Yeah, but the remember that other hemp beer that we had, the malt beverage.
Oh, the malt liquor hemp. Oh, that was awful.
That was an awful one. That was I wouldn't even consider called dank. It was something else entirely. It was like you harvested the fungus from your basement dank.
It's like the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
I wonder if they still make that. I don't think I've seen it in forever.
I don't
but
know how
God,
much it was selling. Like,
I don't know who thought to pair. Like, wow, yeah,
Ooh,
who usually who drinks malt liquor? The poors. You know what the poors like to do when they drink? Smoke too. So let's make a nice.
Yeah, I know.
Hemp.
Just thinking about it.
Malt liquor. Oh, yeah.
Gives me the shivers. I think that was one of the only beers that I can't finish.
Yeah, it's not beer. It's malt liquor.
It's true.
It's different.
True. All right, let's get into our No Way Home conversation.
Spider-Man No Way Home. Don't forget the
Spider-Man. Everybody forgets the hyphen in his name.
You better hyphenate
Get it correct. He's not literally a Spider-Man.
He's Spooder-Man.
Yeah. Well, so let's start out with the first thing that I really like about this movie is that it picks up like pretty much directly after the end of Far From Home, where Peter has vanquished Mysterio. Mysterio dies, and now everybody knows who Spider-Man's identity, what Spider-Man's identity is. They know he's Peter Parker. It's pretty much plastered everywhere.
I got a question. Did No Way Home happen after Infinity War?
That's a good question. I
think it's vague because it
is vague
because
I think it must have had to have because
Homecoming came out before.
I think it had to have happened after because people in this movie mention it quite a bit. Like, oh, my relatives are gone for 5 years. Blah blah blah. But like the film doesn't leave room for that to have occurred if Infinity War happens.
Oh wait, there it is. Endgame, and then Far From Home came out after.
Okay yeah, right. Because I was gonna say the timeline would not make sense otherwise. So I really like how this movie picks up right after Far From Home, and it kind of dives right into that issue of Peter Parker's identity has been basically plastered everywhere, and now he's got to deal with the consequences of everyone knowing that he's Spider-Man. And what does he do with that? And so
I don't get why that's a big deal. Everyone knew who fucking Iron Man was.
Well, so I think that the big deal for him is that they just won't fucking leave him alone, right? Like that's the biggest thing. He knows that and then the film kind of goes into that in small part, where the fact that everybody knows he's Peter Parker is okay, but it's the fact that his family is drawn into this. His family and friends really are drawn into this, and they are being punished for even associating with Spider-Man because Jonah Jameson has done a really good job of kind of like co-opting Spider-Man name into people and making people think that he's not a good guy and that he actually was responsible for killing Mysterio. And then also obviously Mysterio in Far From Home, corrupting how people thought about Spider-Man. And so that all kind of feeds into it. And the film shows what kind of consequences that has, because then, MJ and Ned, they're not able to get into MIT because they have an association with Spider-Man. And while
oh no, not getting into MIT.
Well, not even MIT, but like pretty much every college they had applied to, they all got turned down. And the last one was MIT.
You know what? Good. You saved yourself $200,000 in fucking student loan debt. Congratulations.
That is true.
You know what? They should be throwing themselves at Peter. Like, thank you.
You saved us from a miserable existence of going to school to get a job to pay for school. Yeah,
I'll be out of school with my doctorate when I'm 28 years old and start off with $400,000 in debt.
But the film,
if these kids can invent like stuff like they can, like we see throughout, like you don't need to go to MIT, okay? You can
create a startup app, right?
Yeah, go to your community college, make the book face of your multiverse timeline, and
right.
Money.
Right, exactly. So, but I think the film does go into that part of why it matters that the world knows that he's Spider-Man, because it's not so much about him, but it's about the people that it affects, and that affects his girlfriend, it affects his friend, affects his Aunt May, and so that's really the ultimate issue. And so I like that at the beginning of the movie, the whole thing is fairly lighthearted, right? Like it's a problem, but it's not something that they're trying to solve with like a nuclear option. It's just like, this is inconvenient. We had to move in with Happy. Happy has a CPAP machine. That's annoying. Right? It's fairly lighthearted at the start, and I feel like that's a lot of how Marvel movies start out. It's lighthearted comedy that turns into more darker approaches to the
I will say though, like it is, when you think about it, it's a ridiculous premise though, because like, okay, fine, you find out Peter Parker's Spider-Man. Sorry,
Superman. That would be a revelation in this movie.
You find out he's Spider-Man. Okay, did like people like go find like John Wayne Gacy's parents and like, you fucking gotta share, no. Because you can't, that's stupid. So it's kind of.
I don't know that's that far-fetched, though.
And not only that, too, because again, you also live in a world of superheroes. The Avengers have been a thing for like 20 years in this goddamn, franchise. Mm-hmm. People should be like adjusted to this by now. So like everyone's like, oh, we know who Spider-Man is. Like, who shouldn't people in New York and the world have better things to do than worry about that, and then like be like, oh, well, we can't let his girlfriend get into MIT because she's affiliated with Spider-Man. Well, who only helped beat Thanos and a bunch of other things.
Well, I mean, who cannot think about this though? When J. Jonah Jameson, standing in for Joe Rogan, is constantly broadcasting his
really, I was thinking more like O'Reilly /
Well, it is kind of like Tucker, O'Reilly, but it's like
Tucker Carlson.
It's kind of like all of those, but then you get like the Joe Rogan, because there's like the nutrient supplement that he advertises too.
No, I was gonna say that's more like Alex Jones. Alex Jones
Joe
be
Rogan
like beaver milk.
I don't really listen, but he has like this testosterone protein thing that he advertises constantly for like brain nutrition. And so I was getting that kind of idea from what he. I think it's like an amalgamation of all of them. A terrible 50-headed hydra of poor personalities that I think it was going for.
Going for the right. Yeah, no, you're not wrong. But no, I mean, like, so, I mean, look, I'm willing to accept the premise. I'm fine with it. It's not like that, like, throw me out of my enjoyment of the film. But when you think about it, it is, like, fucking stupid, though.
Well, I think though that's the point of it being such a lighthearted opening is that, like, yeah, it's a inconvenience, but in the scheme of things, it's not really that big of a deal, right? And so when that brings Peter to Doctor Strange,
well, you're missing the whole part where the Department of Damage Control comes in, needs to try to arrest Peter.
Yeah, for
killing Mysterio in Italy.
Well, I mean, that part of it is a little far-fetched, and that's why he gets off the hook, and we also get a little Daredevil cameo there, too.
Best part of the film. I can't wait for Ben Affleck to reprise his role as Daredevil.
That wasn't Ben Affleck.
When we will get him, though, but what about Jennifer Garner as Elektra, too, right? Yeah.
But, I mean, once we get to that point where Peter goes to seek out Doctor Strange, again, he's just asking, like, is there a way that we can reset this, right? Can we just, go back in time and fix it and make sure that nobody knows who I am, and that's that. And, so when Doctor Strange says, no, we really can't be just meddling around with time structures, that should be it, right? But the one thing that Wong says about forgetting sets this whole thing in motion of, oh wait, maybe we can just make people forget that you were, Peter Parker, Spider-Man. They just won't know anymore. And I think that, like, that's where the idea of No Way Home going from a lighthearted movie to more of, like, the darkness works really well, because it's like just an accidental thing that gets set in motion. It's meant to just be like a one-off spell, right? Like something easy that we can just reset people's minds, and then that spirals out of control.
Does that sound easy? That doesn't sound easy.
It doesn't sound easy. It should be easy for Doctor Strange, but
even for the Sorcerer Supreme, that sounds like a kind of like, oh, let me cast a fucking spell.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest issue here is that Doctor Strange kind of takes it in stride that he's just going to do this spell, and he doesn't write anything down. He doesn't take a census from Peter. So what do you want this spell to do? Let's do a Venn diagram of overlap here. Let's do a pros and cons list of, like, making sure that you know what you want.
You would think the Sorcerer Supreme and a former surgeon would do that. However, though, if it is that simple, which, I mean, I guess you're right. It is, like, simple enough because he doesn't really bat an eye. Like, okay, fine, we'll make people forget.
It makes it seem easy, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact Peter, being the stupid fucking child that he is, has to constantly be like, oh, it had this, add that, it had this, and add that, and add this, and that, Yeah, I feel Doctor Strange's frustration. I'd be like, listen, you little shit, okay, like. Stop.
And you like Benedict Cumberbatch in this. You think he does a great job, right?
I love Doctor Strange so far is turning out to be like my favorite of the heroes in the Marvel Universe. The one critique I remember saying from like when we did the film is he went from amateur to master in no time, which is still kind of annoying. But buying the fact that he now is, I mean, technically he's not the Sorcerer Supreme, but Wong is, but he's the Sorcerer Supreme. Like all the things he can do, I like is really cool. Like all the things like how he can constrain time and the spells and everything. I love him, and I can't wait to see kind of like more from him because like he's such an interesting part of the Marvel universe, and that. And also throughout these films, he's kind of gone. People don't really respect him, which is even like when we did the Avengers films, Tony Stark was kind of was a douchebag to him.
Yeah, I mean, I like it because he's like got that surly nature that you don't necessarily get from all of the the superheroes.
And he's kind of replacing Tony as like that, fatherly figure for Peter, because we saw that in the Avengers films, and now that Tony Stark is dead, gone, bye. Who's paying Happy's money, salary now? Who knows?
Right.
He's just getting a stipend from Stark Enterprise.
I think Benedict does a good job here. I think that this film is really fun because it does combine the two worlds of Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, which don't necessarily always come together. And I think that makes this movie really interesting because we get that scene like later on in the movie after Peter has kind of like gone against Doctor Strange's wishes, where we get to see the two worlds kind of collide, where Doctor Strange brings Peter into his special, whatever you want to call it, I don't even know, special like domain,
inner sanctum.
Yeah. And kind of brings him through that, which I always felt was like the really cool part of the first Doctor Strange movie of going through that and seeing like all of the pretty good CGI effects of random physics and cityscapes and things like that are colliding. And I thought that they did a really good job bringing those two characters into the same film. And I think that Marvel would do well to kind of take from this film, kind of pulling from that and saying, like, what if we did make other superheroes kind of collide in ways in their own individual movies that people don't necessarily expect or think about. I think that that's a really good idea for making new storylines out of the superhero movies, instead of just having more standalone movies of the regular, the title superhero. How can we get other superheroes in that don't necessarily always interact with those characters? And I think they do a good job with this with Doctor Strange. And like you said, yeah, Doctor Strange here is really, though he kind of like is sort of cynical about it and reticent about taking on that responsibility, he also does feel like something of a father figure, and kind of recognizes that in himself too. He's like, I forget sometimes you're just a kid. You fought in one of the most important battles of our time, and yet you're still just a kid trying to figure out the world, going to college and stuff like that. So I do think we get that from this movie in No Way Home, and I really like that. I think Benedict Cumberbatch does a really good job with that. And then pulling in all of those elements from Doctor Strange and the mysticism, I think works really well here in No Way Home. But like I said, I do place some blame on Doctor Strange for not doing the research and the due diligence. And as Wong said, he's like, don't bother me with this shit. But yeah, you probably shouldn't do that. But I'm leaving right now because I've got more important matters to attend to. But I do like how in some cases, Doctor Strange is kind of left to his own devices. It's like, I don't know what the fuck he's doing. He's back home in the inner sanctum doing some fucking shit.
Well, see, that's where I think the whole, it doesn't go with this film, but I think that's where the whole kind of the issue is with the original film, with him going from a total novice throughout the entire film and trying to figure out who he is, going from Stephen Strange to Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme. Again, he goes from a novice, and at the very end, all of a sudden, he's the master. If we still had at this point, maybe you don't make at the end of Doctor Strange, he's the Sorcerer Supreme. Make him he's a journeyman sorcerer right now, trying to figure out how to become a better sorcerer, but he just happens to have the time stone. Then this would make all these kind of things kind of fit better. Mm-hmm. Here by this point again, he's the Sorcerer Supreme. He's a powerful wizard that people know that, and he knows that he's got great magic. So he's like, you know, assumed to be a master at this point, and that kind of, just him being like kind of slipshod and slapdash with like, his spell in this is kind of, it'd be more forgivable character wise if, he was still like a journeyman of a character.
Yeah, that is true, because it does make him seem sort of like an expert here, and then making these like what I guess I would consider rudimentary mistakes. And not only that, but also the fact that he doesn't still really understand the multiverse that well, because he even says in this movie, the multiverse is something that we don't really understand that well. It's just kind of a thing that we know is out there, but we don't really get the whole picture. Shows like, I don't know, he's both a master and an amateur at this, and I think that's kind of an interesting take. And I'll be interested to see what Doctor Strange, the sequel, does with how he understands his role and his newfound powers, because I do think that they want to have it both ways. That he makes mistakes, but he also knows like the most intricate spells that only masters of the trade should know. So I don't know if that necessarily works. It doesn't bother me too much in this movie. But I do think that it ushers in probably the most interesting element to the Spider-Man movies that we've seen thus far, which is bringing all three of the universes of Spider-Man movies that we've gotten together. I think that's a really creative way to deal with the multiverse, because the multiverse is can be in some capacities difficult to understand for laymen who aren't really associated with comics, and it can be difficult to try to explain it all in a truncated version in one movie. But
it's a great idea and a great thing that like an editor came up with. Like, shit, we got all these like vintage classic characters and stuff, and like different ideas we want to do. Mm-hmm. How the fuck do we do it? I know. It's a different universe, in which I appreciate the idea. It's also one of the many reasons why I have never gotten great into comics, because there's just too much of a dearth to get through. Mm-hmm. Of like, what's actual continuity and what isn't. Go.
Yeah, I mean, I think this brings it all together with the continuity, because there was somebody who sat down and said, "Whoa, we've got, the public knows we've got 3 different Spider-Men now, right? We've had 3 different franchises. We've had the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, we've had the Amazing Spider-Man, and then we've had this new Spider-Man, and that kind of plays into the meta universe of filmmaking, where we, instead of kind of getting rid of that, just throwing that all out the window, instead they bring it all together and they say, what if we just brought them all together and that explained the multiverse, and we can explain why each of these different Spider-Men have different things going on in their plotting, because they are all different Spider-Men in different universes. I think it's an ingenious way to deal with that.
It's incredibly fanficky, but at the same time, like an idea, like, when you think about it, it's kind of like, well, son of a bitch, how come no one's thought to do this on a film before? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, it is fanficky. It does, speak to the people that love memes, and, that it literally brings some memes together. In this movie, too, there's multiple parts where you could, like, point to the screen and be like, he said the phrase. But at the same time, like, I think it's really ingenious that they brought this all together. And not only that, but, just thinking about the logistics of getting everybody back together, if I were Tobey Maguire, I'd make them throw some money at me, right? I'd be like, yeah, sounds like a cool idea, but I'm kind of busy. I got stuff going on. And
they probably did.
What if we add another 0? And like,
he probably did. He probably didn't even ask for anything. Like, Toby, here's a bag of... They're Disney, for God's sakes.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think that the logistics of getting all these people together, getting Willem Dafoe back, getting, I just think that it's really cool in general. And that's why, in part, why I had so much fun with this movie. Not just because the movie itself is fun and has a really interesting idea for a plotting with all of these characters where, you have multiple supervillains here. But not only that, but just the fact that we were able to get all these people together and come back for this movie, I think is really a cool wrap-up to the Spider-Man trilogy that we've seen so far from Marvel. And again, it just shows why Marvel's decision-making, their phases, their the storylines that they're going with, just works so much better than DC. Because just think about Justice League. How much fun should Justice League? We always come back to this, but how much fun should Justice League have been to see all these favorite superheroes come together? Should have been a lot of fun. It wasn't that fun. And
it was slapdash because you had half the team being introduced in the fucking film.
Right. And then think about this movie, which takes so much, pulls from literally decades of Spider-Man lore. It just works so much better. And it just shows like how much thought has gone into this franchise. I think they did a really good job of that. And I love the fact that they get Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield to come back and really portray very different Peter Parkers. Even to, this iteration of Peter Parker, they're all very, very different despite playing a fairly, pretty much the same type of character. They all do it a little bit differently. And I think they, that really comes out here and works really well in No Way Home. I think it's to talk about the supervillains here. We often have said in other superhero movies that we talked about where you waste supervillains in scenarios where there's 2 or 3 supervillains in the movie, and that sort of feels like a waste where you're not giving one of them enough attention. Here we do have.
It's usually like the sequels, because usually the first one always starts off basic, like we'll put one villain in, and then the second one they add usually there's 2 main villains, and then by the third they add 3 or 4, and it gets too cumbersome, and it's okay, you should have just stuck with one.
Right. So here we don't really have that problem. We have multiple supervillains, but we've seen them before. And I like the fact that it brings them together, and it's let's find a solution to this, because as it stands, they're just going to get murdered in their universes, and that doesn't seem like a thing that a Peter Parker should be fond of. So let's find a different way. So I think it's interesting that they decide to try to fix these supervillains. That there are inherent flaws in each of them that they need to find a tech solution to fix the reason why they are a supervillain in the first place. What did you think about that? The act of fixing a supervillain.
So, if spoilers. So if you're not we didn't cover it, but I just want to cover it real quick before we get into that. So after Doctor Strange casts a spell of people we want to forget who Peter Parker is, it rips a hole into the multiverse, and that's how you get all these villains and previous different Spider-Mans into this universe. That's how that happens, because Peter fucking up the spell by trying to change it 1,000 times that Strange is casting. Fine with, and you get the really cool reveal of when Peter's trying to talk to the MIT admissions person on the Throg's neck or whatever the hell, and we get to see Doc Ock show up. That's fucking awesome, because especially because I understand the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films haven't aged terribly well. I still love them, especially Spider-Man 1 and 2. And Willem Dafoe as Doc Ock, and as Harry, as the Green Goblin, and with
Alfred Molina
as Doc Ock. I've seen Spider-Man 1, 2 a billion times. But, so, like, the whole idea of, like, reforming, changing villains, I'm fine with the idea because it's something that's been always persistent in, like, in DC, with, like, Batman stories. It's, always been, like, kind of, like, his out as, like, why doesn't he, like, try to kill his supervillain gallery? It's because he's always, he errs on the side of, trying to reform them, change them. It's more prevalent, mainly prevalent. I mean, again, I can't really comment on the comics, but in, like, the Batman, the animated series, and the Justice League, and so on, in the Timverse, it's, it's always been, like, kind of like a point. So I'm fine with that, and I think that's, really good, because if you think about it, like, okay, why are most of these people, when you relate to Spider-Man, like Doc Ock, Harry Osborn, why are they villains? Well, we know why they're villains, because we've seen the films of how they became villains and, took on Spider-Man. So this Peter's like, how can I change that? I get that. And I like that, because, again, it's like, it's thinking outside the box instead of just trying to have him fight all these, this menagerie of villains. He's trying to, change them. Totally fine with that. However, I think at the same time, it kind of, in a way, bastardizes the other Peters, because I don't think the other Peters were ever, like, it wasn't kind of like a point to kind of be brought up. It's just like a traditional, like, hero versus villain. So it makes kind of like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield look stupid.
Well, also makes them look
because this Peter, like, oh, I got the cure for everyone right here, like, because like this MacGuffin, the Stark Industry box that can power all this shit, Yeah,
I mean, it also makes them kind of look like they didn't try to do this sort of thing. They were really only concerned with dominating them, which makes sense because they're supposed to be high schoolers. So, like, their depth of, like, thinking, which is kind of the critique of this film, of this Peter, because when Strange, like, again, like, the funniest thing, like, the whole part where Strange is, like, casting the spell, and then he contains it because it's getting out of hand, and he's like, well, you can always ask them for, forgiveness and to try to change their mind. And he's like, oh, you can do that? And he's like, you didn't call them? You didn't even fucking try that? Your first thought was to come here and ask me to do a fucking, like, that part's amazing. I love, like, that part right there is like, oh, Doctor Strange is the best. But again, I understand, like, because they're all supposed to be, like, high schoolers, but at the same time, it's like kind of like everyone looks foolish in the process. Yeah, and not only that, but it does really make the other two Peter Parkers look bad, and for good reason. I mean, one of the reasons being that they have apparently in their universes kind of hit, like, their low, right? Because Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, lost Gwen. He had to see her die, and Tobey Maguire's lost Ben, and they were both very upset about that, and they've kind of, like, gone through the paces of being Spider-Man and what that means, and most of the time it means a life of loneliness,
agony, misery,
because either you literally cannot stop because crime is always happening, so you can't have, like, a regular normal life outside of that, or you can't have a family or someone you care about because villains always use that to their advantage. So your relationships kind of suffer from that. So they both kind of have that sort of PTSD of, I tried it didn't work that well. But I've made do in my life, and I've got the best that I can do. So I mean, I think it makes sense that, like, in their particular universes, there are times where these supervillains might end up dying from the extent of their injuries or something. And that's kind of what this movie gets at, is, like, if we let them continue on the path that they're going, then that's what's going to happen. But if we fix them, and in part two, fix Spider-Man, fix Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, and fix Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man a little bit too, by giving them like some sort of brotherhood in this movie, we can prevent that in the other universes too. I think it's an interesting idea. I don't know that it entirely works, but I was engaged enough to go along with it. And I like the fact that we get 3 different Spider-Men with 3 different suits working together, and also understanding the fact that, like, oh, we're not really good at this. Like, we don't normally fight together with other people. We're not good at, doing the whole team thing. I thought that worked. That was pretty interesting because, obviously in this universe, our Spider-Man has fought in the Avengers. The other universes, they don't really impede on any other Marvel heroes. So they don't have any knowledge of anything else that's going on in the Marvel universe, which I thought was another interesting meta commentary on, the other 2 franchises. We didn't talk about Aunt May. Do you want to talk about Aunt May? Or do you not want to talk about Aunt May because it's too fresh for you?
It hurts.
Yeah.
She just had to say the line.
She had to say the line, yeah. When she delivered the "with great power" line, you knew. Had to be coming.
Smoking gun. She was dead right there.
That's right.
By the way, this Spider-Man, if there was any critique to have of fucking Tom Holland's Spider-Man, stop putting your friends and family in danger, you son of a bitch. Why are you dragging Zendaya and Ned and all of that and Aunt May off to the battlefield? Keep them at home.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And he tried, I guess.
He sows so much of his own misery.
That is true. Like, he kind of puts, he puts them in danger. Like, especially, well, I mean, I guess Aunt May in some parts asked for it. She was kind of like, well, we can fix them, so let's go do it. But yeah, probably don't bring him to Happy's apartment with her. Just in case. I mean, just look at Willem Dafoe's face, and you just look at it, and you're like, okay, maybe he's up to no good. I do really like how in this movie, the film is just like, you know what? Fuck the Green Goblin mask. We're not doing the Green Goblin mask.
No, because you know what? You want to know why? Because after he breaks the mask, which again looks, when you compare it to like today, like because they have like the original Green Goblin mask from Sam Raimi's Spider, it looks so fucking stupid, but it's so awesome. But again, you don't need that mask because Willem Dafoe, when he's like hobbling around on his little flying scooter throwing bombs with the hood up. That looks menacing enough as it is. Like you don't need the mask.
He doesn't need the mask. They just
because he's got the facial expressions to do it all.
Right.
And that's awesome. And that's that's like the high parts. Like those are like the high parts of the film. Like seeing Willem Dafoe as the Goblin in this timeline. Seeing Jamie Foxx as Electro in this timeline. Seeing Doc Ock. That's the great parts of the film.
I also really like the fact that you can see how much the CGI has improved since the original Spider-Man movies. Because just like even the Green Goblin, whatever those are, like the explosive balls that he throws, like just so much better than even the Sam Raimi version.
Do you remember the Sam Raimi, what happens to them when they die?
I don't.
They turn into like the skeletons, and they look so fucking bad. They look like skeletons you hang up on your wall.
Like how much the CGI has improved is amazing. I will say that there are a couple instances where the CGI in this movie is not all up to snuff.
Well, there's a lot.
The one time when Tobey Maguire is wearing his youth pastor outfit, and they have him jumping down the building, like where he was standing up on top of the building, that CGI looks pretty suspect because it's hard to CGI like a real person like that. But I think like the CGI is really, really good because it has such like depth to it. Like it's, I don't know, how do you describe it? It has like just like a weight to it. that feels real. But at the same time, there are a few scenes that do suffer from, like the noticeable CGI-ness of like awkward movement or stale like effects on the person. The one in particular that I noticed too was the green screen behind Doctor Strange on the train when he's standing on the subway train that's going through like the cityscape, and like his cape is barely moving in the wind and stuff like that. That
I think
makes it noticeable. But
I think that's always been like a problem with these films, though. It's like there's just so much going on where they're going to do CGI, and they have the money to do it. Like it's just like it is taxing at some point. Like you would almost I respect John Waters' like recent interview where he's like, the cheap effects kind of look I find it more endearing because even though it's like very good CGI overall, it's like 20%, like 30% of the film that you're watching is an actual movie. The rest of it's like an animated feature.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it does remind sometimes of just like, oh, I'm playing a video game, like the Spider-Man video game. It is a lot of that sort of thing.
So out of all the villains to come back, who and I know who it is, but who were you like happiest to see? Like yes, like
I was definitely happiest to see Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin. I really love how he plays that. It's hard to imagine anybody else playing Green Goblin besides Willem Dafoe, and I think that's one of the reasons why if the plot for this movie required Green Goblin, they were just like, well, who else?
Well,
like,
you'd have to do it now. You'd literally like this whole idea. You'd have to do like now because if you wait like 2 more years, like I'm not saying Willem Dafoe's old or like Alfred Molina, but they're old enough to where like if you put them in, Willem Dafoe's almost 70, so yeah, it's
right.
There's
a risk, right? Like you don't want to wait too long because there's a risk that at some point they may eventually die, and you won't have that ability to make this movie. I do think that's that is one of the reasons.
Or they'll come off as too decrepit, like that's not
right. And I don't think that we get that from Willem Dafoe. I don't think he really looks decrepit in any way.
Alfred Molina is also he's 68. He looks
looks
very good.
The height of vitality. Jamie Foxx too. I mean, hasn't really changed that much. So I think
and I say he hasn't aged today. The man's like 55 years old. He still looks like Jamie Foxx and Ray.
I mean, so I think now is the time to do it, and he did a really good job with bringing that together. I do think that it would be really hard to imagine a different Green Goblin besides Willem Dafoe. So that's why they had to bring him back. It's just like J. Jonah Jameson. Like, who else are you gonna get?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Missing part of the film. Where is J.K. Simmons as the J. Jonah Jameson from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man?
That's right. Because he does reprise a role. He's basically the same guy. I would like to have seen that where it was just like, hey, you're me, and they're the same guy. Literally.
Who's this asshole? Fire him. I'm just kidding. Hire him. Come here. Parker, give me those pictures. One of those pictures for Spider-Man. Damn. See, I like that is literally the part of these Spider-Man films that's totally missing. I get it because the newspapers are all but like a forgotten part of Americana. I get that. At the same time, though, like that's like half the fun of like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. So when J.K. Simmons shows up as J. Jonah Jameson, like, God damn it, Peter, give me some goddamn pictures of Spider-Man. How much you want? $20? You're getting 15. Come here, you're fired. No, come here, you're hired.
It is also too bad that the Aunt Mays didn't get to meet. Be like, that's me.
But I mean, yeah. So that that would have been great seeing like another J. Jonah Jameson show up for like who the hell are you? No. I'm J. Jonah Jameson, head of the Daily Bugle.
Let's see. What do you think of the fight scenes in this movie?
Yeah, they're okay. It's a weak spot. It's too too like fast paced with not like too much happening.
Well, I think the majority of the fight scenes are actually CGI, right? Like, so
yeah.
the entirety of the end of the movie, the conclusion, is almost solely CGI. The fights with Tom Holland and Willem Dafoe are actually probably the highlight of the movie because those are truly like choreographed fights. The ones in the apartment building where he's getting thrown through multiple windows and floors and shit. Those look really good, and the fight at the end where Tom Holland is just beating the shit out of Willem Dafoe looks really good too. But I think like one of the problems is in this movie, most of those are CGI, so it just doesn't come off as as realistic.
Do you think it's wasted that they didn't kill off Tobey Maguire? They teased it for like a split second where you think
Right, like
Tom Holland's kill Willem Dafoe for killing Aunt May and having all that anger, and then as he's just about to like shove the glider into him, Tobey Maguire saves the day, and then he gets stabbed.
So here's the thing, I think it would be really interesting if they did kill off Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, if they were willing to continue that franchise too, right? As like an alternate universe, because I think that would be really interesting.
Sam Raimi gets a fourth Spider-Man film.
Exactly, right. Like continue that, and then pick up from there and say like, oh, what is this world gonna do without a Spider-Man? Well, of course, there's gonna be another Spider-Man. Somebody needs to step up. I think that would be really interesting. Why can't you have two different franchise Spider-Mans going at the same time?
There you go. That's where you get the Miles Morales.
Exactly. Like, why can't you? If they were willing to do that, which I know they're not, because that's just like they're not willing to have two different franchises of Spider-Man going at the same time like that. But if they were,
it'd be too taxing.
It may be. But I think that would be a cool idea.
No, it would be, but like say like for instance, I think this is where it would work. Say like for instance, you still had Fox or Sony still own like half the rights to it, so it's like okay, on this year Disney gets to make this Spider-Man film, and then on this year they get to do their own.
It's like the Call of Duties of Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, where you're switching between Treyarch and. Whoever the hell now, I can't.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be interesting, but since I know that they're not willing to do that, I think it's fine that they did not kill off Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, because I think that would be too dark for this movie, and I do think that because they're not willing to pursue that, there's really no point in doing it. Just let that go back to the status quo. If they were willing to pursue something like very creative, like maybe even having like a Spider-Gwen or something. Oh,
there you go. You can spin off to like Spider-Woman or
exactly
Spider-Girl.
Right. Like if they were willing to do something like that on the other franchise level, then yes, I think that it would have been a waste to not kill off Tobey Maguire here and just like have that be a retcon. But I think because I know that they're not willing to do that, I'm fine with them keeping him alive and just having that be like a surprise. What do you think about the ending that we get where, everybody, Peter gets what he wants, which is everybody forgets Spider-Man, but literally everyone forgets that he's Spider-Man. And so
he didn't write a note down or anything to give to like MJ.
Well, see, you're taking that really literally that it's just like everyone forgets. But with Doctor Strange being so powerful, I take it as everyone forgets and he wipes out literally every trace of him being Peter Parker.
No, because they didn't say that.
No, I know
not like that too.
That.
So like, there's been this whole like to do for the past couple of weeks about Peter Parker Spider-Man. No one had left open in their 1,000 tabs browsers like the true identity of Spider-Man on YouTube and like, hey, what's this? No one like That's where this film lost me.
Buried it better than those Swiss bank accounts that were released and then forgotten about.
But I mean, yeah, no, it's fine. To be honest with you, I think the way to set up the next film, I don't think they will do it, but kind of like the next kind of way to set it up is like if you were to do Spider-Man 4. He's lost everyone. He's lost his aunt. He's lost his girlfriend. He's lost his friends. He's lost his teammates. Does this lead into one more day where like he meets Mephisto and he makes a deal with the devil, trying to get it back?
I guess that's a good question. Do you think there's going to be a Spider-Man 4?
I hope so.
Because I know that they had intended this as like sort of like a trilogy sort of thing.
But I mean, then like, what are you gonna have him do? Just appear in like the next like set of Avengers films?
Yeah, he appears in is Sad Boy.
But again, also too, like so, like people still know who Spider-Man is, so he's still a part of the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
So like, no one's like, oh, this Spider. We know who this guy on the team is named Spider-Man. He helps us out.
That would be funny though, yeah. If they're just like, yeah, it's Spider-Man. Like, but we don't know who this Spider-Man is, but he's...
So we're going to get in, like, the next Avengers film, Ant-Man, Paul Rudd going, it's Spider-Man, wow. I love Spider-Man.
Probably.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know if we're going to get a fourth movie or not.
I hope so, because, I mean, got to get it while Tom Holland still looks young and Zendaya looks forever young, so, I mean... They could run this forever. But I mean, and again, I think they have to, because I think to conclude it on kind of like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 1, where he's at the graveyard, at the cemetery mourning Aunt May, and you see Jon Favreau happy there mourning her too, and asks him how he knows her, and he says through Spider-Man, and they have their talk. That's a great little part. It's nice that they end it on such a dour. If that's where they leave Spider-Man off and they end on such a dour note, incredibly ballsy, incredibly risky, incredibly bold move. I don't think they'll do that though, because there has to be like another arc to this, to where people get what their happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I don't think Disney is capable of just leaving that kind of hanging there.
I mean, I did kind of like the downer ending though. It was just like, where Peter's like, you know what?
He learns the hardest of lessons. No, I like it
like this. Yeah.
I know I like it too, but at the same time, I don't think they have it in them to do it. And I would almost like to see. I would like to see them continue on. Like, where do we go from here? And that's where, again, like, I think introducing, like, maybe having Mephisto be the next villain, making a deal with and Peter making a deal with the devil. So, like, this time, like, okay, I tried magic, let's try a fucking demon. And it backfire, even more. Mm-hmm. Though that wouldn't be an exact take on, like, the One More Day story, but, I mean, it'd be, like, implementing, ideas from it. I think that would be interesting,
Yeah.
Well, who knows? Because at this point, seeing as we haven't seen Black Widow and Shang-Chi and Eternals, like, what the hell, like, what is, like, the next big to do in the Marvel Universe after Thanos?
I don't know. It's a good question. It's going to be the multiverses, I guess. Because this kind of sets that in motion, and then we're going to get Doctor Strange with the multiverse, and then, I'm assuming some other fallout from that. But
because we don't even, like I said, we don't even know how Eternals and all that ties in. So,
all right. So on a scale of 0 to 10, Marissa Tomei deaths.
You bastard.
Yeah. What would you give Spider-Man No Way Home?
I'll give it an 8 on 10. I feel like I gave the other two like 8, 8.5. I would say like I would say like 8.25, but I don't. We don't do that here unless it's Ryan from last episode.
Yeah.
It's a very good movie. It's, if you think about it, it has a lot of dumb plot points, but it has enough ingenuity in how it like is narratively designed to be interesting. And I think the whole like kind of fan fiction-y idea of like what happened if you create the multiverse, okay, and then you combine previous iterations into this, with villains and heroes. It works incredibly well. And it's a great idea, and I'm surprised it took them this long to somebody to do it. Tom Holland's great. Tobey Maguire's great. Andrew Garfield's great. Willem Dafoe is fantastic. Seals the show. Alfred Molina's great. Jamie Foxx is great. I love Jon Favreau. He's always such a delight in these films. Marissa Tomei obviously is great. It's a great film. If you're looking for fan service, this is the film for you. It's an entertaining romp, a lot of fun. I will say it is long in the tooth. There's a lot of stuff in the beginning that I think kind of could have been trimmed down, because at 2 hours and almost fucking 40 minutes, there's a lot of stuff that kind of either could have been truncated, or if they were going to go that long, make it more coherent story-wise. Benedict Cumberbatch, great as Doctor Strange. I can't wait to see his next film, which is going to be the next one in May. As all the Spider-Man films have been since Disney's bought Marvel, they've always been very fun, very entertaining romps, and this is another one. And I would like to see what the conclusion is going to be. If this is it, it's a very somber and dour note to go on for Spider-Man, for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but it's also, it's poignant. It's very poignant. But we didn't talk about, we get to see Tom Hardy at the end with Venom, and that kind of colliding into this too. So I think with the fact that popped up and they left a little bit of the symbiote behind, I don't think this is where it's going to end, because I think eventually it's going to make his way to Tom Holland's Peter Parker in this. So, but I would say right now 8 on 10. It could be an 8.5.
I would give this an 8.75. I really enjoy this movie. I think that it has, like you said, a lot of good fan service. It combines all three of the Spider-Man franchises. I really thought that was a lot of fun. Getting Doctor Strange involved too, I thought was a really good element to this movie that I think more Marvel movies need, to get the standalone characters involved with other superheroes that they generally just wouldn't be a part of otherwise. I really liked the fact that we see a more downer note to this movie. Starts off lighthearted, but it really goes kind of dark here. It retains the comedy, and I think with the two different Spider-Mans, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, I think they did a really good job retaining the different styles of Peter Parker that they brought to their franchises. But ultimately, I think this is a darker Spider-Man movie than we're used to, especially considering Aunt May's fate in this one. And I like that fact. I like that it ends sort of on a downer note, that, instead of, bringing back his friends and MJ and trying to establish those relationships again, he decides, what, maybe it's better off that I don't. They're happy. They're doing well not knowing me. And there's always a danger in knowing Spider-Man. So I like the fact that it does that. If it comes back for a fourth movie, I'm okay with that. And I think that they probably will in some capacity. You're right, too. I would love to see a mashup with Venom and Carnage, which is not something that we've seen before, because they're right now in considered two different universes. But I would love to see that. And getting into more of the deeper lore of the Spider-Man comics. But, if they left it at this, I would be completely fine with that too, because I think that sets in motion the same ideas of the Spider-Mans from the other universes, that it's hard to be Spider-Man and have an outside life. They don't generally mesh. But I really like what No Way Home does. I think that this is the best of the Spider-Man trilogy that we've seen so far. You know, and I like that they've given these voices to, you know, the director John Watts, who's been here from the beginning. So if they do decide to bring it back, I would be fine with it, so long as he directs again and, you know, they continue the writing team. But if not, then I'm fine with the ending here. I think it's a satisfying way to end the trilogy. So either way, really good film, and, you know, probably one of the best Spider-Man movies that I've seen.
It's not as good as Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man, because it has Nickelback. And they say a hero could save us.
Yeah, it was a different time back then.
A sad time. 9/11 happened. We had to add the American flag. I'm gonna fly on the wings of an angel. That's my Chad Kroger impression. Yeah.
All right. What are we doing? What are we doing next time?
I don't know.
That's a good question. So I think we finally run out of like things that we were like, yes, we've got to get done.
Well, we have to do the Batman.
At some point, yeah, we definitely do have to do the Batman. Are we doing an Easter episode?
Is there an Easter thing to do?
Critters 2. I've been telling you, Critters 2.
Oh.
So yeah, maybe we will. Like, and that'll be. I think we'll probably take a break next week, and then come back after that and do Critters 2. I think that would be appropriate. I think that'll be our next episode, and then from there we can decide what else are we going to do.
April 19th is when the Batman will be on HBO Max.
Well, there you go. That kind of works out perfectly. We'll do Critters 2, April 19th. See the Batman.
You know what we should do in the in-between? We should do Adam West's Batman movie.
Oh, yeah.
I love that movie.
No, I think we'll pivot away from superheroes after that for a little while.
Never!
There's no dearth of superhero movies to cover.
At this point, we covered more superhero films than we have Giallo. So we've missed the point quite a bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for listening to our episode on Spider-Man Far From Home, No Way Home. We are on pretty much any podcasting app that you can think of. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, our home base at anchor.fm. Subscribe to us. Leave us a nice review. That always helps us out. We're on Facebook and Twitter. You can find us on there. Just search for us, Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We have an email address at bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. You can write to us. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. We'll take that into consideration. And you can also donate to us on our Patreon page. At patreon.com/bloodandblackrumpodcast, or you can donate to us on our anchor.fm page or on iTunes, or however you want to donate. Well, we put it back towards beer, so we really appreciate anything you can give our way. So thanks for listening. We hope to be back in a couple weeks with a new episode, and appreciate you staying with us on our show.
Take care.